Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us, those of you who have joined us live today, and those of you who are listening to the recorded version as well. My name is James Osborne. I'm a non-exec director and advisor to the recruitment sector, and also co-founder of the Recruitment Network, which is a large global community for recruitment business leaders. Today's session, hosted by our friends at Bullhorn, who have kindly put this together. And we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is around productivity, performance, high performance, and I'm going to keep stretching the word out as much as I possibly can over the next 45 minutes. Joining us today, we've got three absolute experts, three genuinely brilliant people in the room to talk to us about performance in the recruitment sector. So I'll quickly introduce Michelle Jones, who's the Learning and Development Director at RBW Consulting, Lloyd Gordon, who's the CEO of the Focus Cloud Group, and Shane Simpson, who's the Group Managing Director of Ascent International Group. So thank you for the three of you for joining us. Really great to have you here as always. Those of you who are, a bit of housekeeping, those of you who are listening live to this session, just to let you know, if you've got any questions at all, you're all on mute, so please put them in the Q&A box, which I've now just been told where it is. So put your Q&A, any questions you might have for me or the guys here, and we'll make sure we answer those as we go. The recording of the session we'll send across to you afterwards, so you will get a copy of the recording, etc., etc. So we'll have all that done for you. So let's get into it. We're talking about productivity, building a culture of productivity, and I suppose the title links a little bit around it's been a challenging market, so therefore how the hell do you stay productive and drive productivity in a challenging market, I suppose, is a bit of the theme that we're sort of going to go with. I'm going to kick off with Lloyd, if that's okay, just because I know you and I spend a lot of time talking around high performance and productivity. You share some amazing videos daily, and typically about 3:30 in the morning, around high performing people and what people are up to. What do you mean when you talk about productivity? What do you see? What does that mean to you, Lloyd?
I think productivity can mean so many different things, James, but for me, it means being close to or at your best and doing all the things around that make that happen for an individual or a team.
And do you think that will change all the time? So do what people consider to be their best, is that continuously evolving, continuously changing? Is it like a benchmark line that you have to keep building up on?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because you have a goal in your mind, and you push yourself in order to reach that goal. And when you reach that goal, then you've got to have another goal. Otherwise, we run along with nowhere to go.
And Shane, you're nodding your head there on that one. Does that not potentially create an issue where people are never content with what they've got? You never actually, because you're never going to achieve your goal, right? If you keep stretching it out and pushing it further and further away.
Yeah, it's true. But why should you be happy with just staying where you are?
All right, I'm just provoking the questions, right? Don't give me a hard time with this.
My thoughts. I think that's really important, though. I think you should be. I think it's really important to have a goal, and I think at every level within the business, people should have a goal. Because if you're at the top and you don't know where you're going, company doesn't have a plan, guarantee you the rest of the business is in the same situation, and you're not going anywhere. And I think, unless you're lined up as a company where you want to go and everyone's striving for that, you're not going to get there. And at an individual level, why do you get out of bed every day? Recruitment is not easy. Okay, it's amazing. I love it, but there are days where it's harder than other days. And it's those days that you need to just think, why do I get out of bed? What am I doing this for?
Yeah.
All the different motivators, you've got to find out which one's yours and what you're doing to achieve it.
And Michelle, you drive L&D, so you're about helping people understand what high performance looks like, helping them have the skills to be able to get there, etc. Presumably, you deal with people who are coming in quite new to the industry as well. How do you define expectations for people so we don't put them off, we don't scare them, but at the same time we do drive them to a different level of performance than maybe they thought they could do?
I think it's really important to kind of, to Lloyd's point there, it's about sort of having a start point, but then building on it. So we're a massive fan of having a kind of 90-day roadmap, and we break that down into sprints. So we're not expecting someone on day one to come in and be hitting the same numbers that they're going to be hitting on day 120. So we're kind of easing people in, but it's not just about, driving the performance from that perspective. I think one of the things that I do quite a lot with people is really look at efficiencies and effectiveness as part of that program. So making sure that we're giving people the tools to allow them to be building upon stuff day in, day out, and knowing where they're trying to get to. I think for newbies coming into the industry, it is a bit of a roller coaster. So if you don't give them a clear path that they're following, when they're on the downs, they don't know where they're going to keep that kind of focus going. So I think that's equally as important, because they might not have goals in mind yet. We might need to lead them to what that should be in the early days.
Yeah, for sure. And Shane, if we look back, and we've all been speaking about this, the last 12, 18 months have been a really, I use the word interesting time in the recruitment sector, because some people had a great time, right? Some people it's been great. Some people found it really challenging, everywhere in between. So I don't think it's fair to say it's been a tough time for everyone, because it hasn't. But it has been an interesting time for sure. One of the things that we have to do as leaders is try and create and foster a culture of productivity and a culture of high performance. How do you do that? Or what's some of the go-to strategies that you've implemented in these last 12 to 18 months when it has been tough? And actually even trying to sort of get people on a rah-rah and get them going and that type of stuff when actually they're really not feeling it. What are some of the things that you guys have done in your business to try and drive that?
So we've tried to make sure that people are doing the right bits of their job. So the best people doing the bits that they're best at as often as possible. So I think, you've got multiple different roles within recruitment, 180, 270, 360, and everything in between. There are reasons that those roles exist, because people prefer to do some of those tasks. And if they prefer to do it, they're probably better at it because they do it more often and with a bit more kind of vigor. So one of the things that we've done is we've looked at buddying up those that are stronger in certain elements and making sure that certain tasks are done by the people that are stronger on those tasks, and just making sure that we genuinely stick to the basic things that have always worked, and just make sure that they're done as often as possible to the best of our ability. I think if you stick to the basics and keep it simple, you can have great success.
So that whole piece around doing the basics brilliantly and consistently that we've been talking about for 50 years now, type of stuff. And probably, we're having a bit of a joke about the Olympics being on at the moment, that type of stuff. But actually, the reality is, the real Olympians, the ones who do the best, are the ones who are just consistent the whole way through this. And the reason we've got people who are at their 4th Olympics and winning now is because of that consistency piece. They do the basics every single day, day in, day out, and that sort of stuff. Michelle, going back to you for a second on when Shane's point, when he's talking around playing to people's strengths, etc. From an L&D point of view, therefore, do you have multiple pathways that people can go on, multiple career paths, so they allow them to play to their strengths? Or because recruitment's quite linear, right? So you come into join recruitment, here's your pathway, follow it, and that's it. As opposed to there's maybe 3 or 4 different routes you can go down here. What do you guys do at Abu Dhabi?
We've kind of changed over the years. We definitely have different career paths, and so we were very much of the original model of it could be a 180, a 270, 360. In recent times, we've been driving more 360. I think every business that I've certainly been communicating with have had a real drive on pushing the business development elements of the job and winning more jobs, winning more clients. So we've got some 180s in the business but haven't been hiring those recently. We've been more focused on 360. Our progression is we have individual development plans, and so it is definitely about that playing to your strengths. For example, we recognize that sometimes the best billers are not the best leaders, and so we have a path that allows people to still progress to director, senior director level, but without having to run a team, for example. And that is playing to strengths, because it's you can undo everything that you've been doing if you've got the wrong person leading a team really, really quickly. So I think that's where we become a bit more bespoke, which then does play into that, making sure that you're leading from the front and you're creating productivity because you've got the right people driving.
100%. So let's talk about leading from the front. I'm going to bring this down to you, Lloyd, because we often talk about, it's been a tough market for recruiters these last 12 to 18 months. Let's be honest about it. It's tough for leaders as well, right? I mean, we have to lead from the front. We have to be every day. We have to show up to work. We have to demonstrate resilience. We have to demonstrate with positivity. We have to do all the things that we want other people to do, so therefore lead by example. But it's not easy, because as leaders we get all the challenges and we get everyone else's baggage and problems and 1,000 things as well. Just talk me through your journey, Lloyd, around how do you keep yourself motivated, pumped and inspired and everything else. And even good times and bad times. It's not just about the negative times, but, you know, also during the good times as well.
How do I keep myself motivated?
Hmm.
Oh, you're asking me there, James. Secret tricks of the trade here as well, right? So I mean, you've known me for a long time, right? What we've known each other for 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And what works for me personally is whatever I listen to in the first 20 minutes of waking up pretty much shape my day. So the first thing that I do when I wake up is I listen to something extremely positive, and that will be the types of videos that I share on LinkedIn. Occasionally, only occasionally I do that, because that puts me in the frame of mind, and it doesn't matter what's going on in my life or my personal life or my business life, as long as I do that every day, I don't see any negatives and I don't see any downsides or anything like that. That can be dangerous at times because it does leave you a little bit blinkered to a certain extent. You know, the whole world could be crashing around and you'll go, yeah, everything's great, right? You know, but I find that works for me personally, because I don't believe that, when people say, oh, the market's really bad. The market's not that bad, you know. And if you haven't got the right mindset to deal with a downturn in the market, then all of a sudden a slight downturn in the market will be a massive downturn in the market because your mindset's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I do every single day is I wake up and I make sure my mindset's right.
Yeah.
And the reason I share those things, specifically with my team and my network on LinkedIn, those who listen, is because I would like other people's mindset to be right. So if they can take a small percentage of what I've learned over the years by doing those things in my life, how better could their lives be? And how could I change their mindset going into a difficult market or a really good market or whatever? Because a really good market can be an amazing market if you've got the right mindset. A slight dip in a market can be a massive downturn in a market if you haven't got the right mindset.
So it's interesting, isn't it? So we often talk about performance being very much based around mindset over necessarily skills and everything else. That's the differentiator. You know, teaching someone to do recruitment, not that complicated, not in a patronizing way to anyone listening to the call, but you know, the process of recruitment is a process. You follow the process, you're probably going to reasonably be okay. Yeah. It's how you apply yourself to that process and that mindset piece, which is big. So so with that in mind, Michelle, when you're training people, how much of your training is mindset type training and emotive, attitudinal type stuff over skills-based training, would you say?
I would say it's mixed, and we definitely do some of the mindset stuff. We do a lot of work around, just looking for like 1% marginal gains, for example. Because I think sometimes people come in and they think that you're going to teach them something that's like wholesale different to what we've been doing from, dare I say it out loud, the 80s probably. If you've been in recruitment long enough, you'll know that, to your point, the process is the process. So we do a lot around, actually 1% marginal gains compounds over time. And if you can focus on the small wins and celebrating those small wins, actually they build up over time. And before you know it, they become bigger and bigger. And also just refocusing. So I think that I'm a fan of always saying to people, how are you being agile? How are you pivoting? Because if you are doing the same thing day in, day out, and you're running against the wall, whacking your head, getting up and going again and doing the same thing without tweaking slightly, actually, you're probably not going to get very far. So there's definitely that. And I think it's about, certainly in our industry, being life sciences, sometimes it's a longer game. You don't get the quick wins as you would in other industries. So it's about educating people that the work they're doing today, we might not reap the rewards of that for 3 months based on the market that we're in as an industry. So we do some work on that, and we do a lot of we use insights discovery as an organization. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's psychometric testing. What that really helps, certainly from my perspective and from our team leaders' perspective, is just understanding where someone leads with their color, because actually me working with someone that is more blue in personality requires a much different approach to working with someone that is a sunshine yellow personality. And so it's it's not a one size fits all when it comes to mindset as well. We'd all love to be Lloyd getting up and raring to go in the morning, but some people just built that way.
Yeah.
So it's about being able to adapt to that.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's a massive piece around behind leadership, but just generally is like great leaders have the ability to adapt to the different personalities within their team. It's not a one sort of size fits all strategy or approach. You talked about well, when we talk about how do you drive right mindset, one of the key things is understanding people's motivations to be able to create that mindset in the first place. We just completed a big survey across the industry called the Ignite Motivation Survey, where we went out and asked hundreds of recruiters what are their real motivators and drivers, and the results were really surprising. Actually, it wasn't what I was expecting. I'm happy to share the results if anyone is interested. We'll send you a copy of the report. Shane, can I just touch on you for a second, because one of the questions that's come in is, how do we keep employees motivated in our businesses, good times and bad times, challenging times, even when you've got good performers? How do we get how do we motivate someone to want to go up and even further when they're doing fine? I'm a 400k biller, why do I need to go to 500, 600k? What are some of the things that you do around motivation of people to get more performance and productivity?
So we do map out what motivates each individual. So we'll do that in their quarterlies. We'll set targets aligned with that for short, medium, and long term. So you ask a recruiter what motivates them. On the surface, 90% will say money. It's 1% really that's motivated by money. It's something else. Gives them the access to the stability, which is probably a huge motivator at the moment for a lot of people. So we break it down at an individual level, and then we'll have office team targets, and we'll have organizational targets, where we'll be looking to get different levels of rewards. For us, we're running a competition at the moment, which is to go to a big retail store. Quite an old school competition actually. It's one I did when I was a consultant. Party bus, champagne all day, go to Harrods, get a load of money to spend, nice restaurant, and then we all go back after. So it's like a lunch club, but there's quite a lot of potential money to spend in there and so on. And it's not rocket science. Everybody knows what they need to do to get on that trip. Don't be left in the office. Yeah. And I remember that as a consultant, I was like, there was no way. I found a way to hit my threshold to get on there. And I think it's little things like that. You've got to get down to the individual. You've got to understand the individual, and you've kind of got to probe more than probably we normally probe. Because I think the first answer you get, you're like, okay, tick, move on. We're always too busy to get into the detail. But just ask that question a few different ways. You'll probably get a different answer, and then you got something you can work with.
It's fascinating. When we did the Ignite survey, for the first time in history, I think we've now got 5 different generations working in our businesses. So there's a whole multi-generational thing going here, because there will be generation. I'm not saying that's specific to generations, but there will be generations who will be more attuned to going on your party bus and doing that. Other generations are going, that's the last thing I would want to do. Thanks ever so much. We see it all the time with people, half naked in some beach club somewhere in the south of France or wherever it might be, sort of stuff, doing their thing. And and for some people that's like their idea of absolute hell. Going back to Michelle's point about the sort of the red, blue, green, yellow type thing, so for some people that will just be an absolute disaster.
Yeah,
Lloyd,
we have done weeks in the lakes and things like that as well.
I'm not suggesting that's all you do, by the way, make it really clear. But Lloyd, bring that over to, if you look at Focus Tab, you guys, as a business, well over 100 consultants, you've got multi-generations within your business at different levels. So how do you build a motivation strategy that ticks everyone's boxes? Because you're going to have different people wanting to do different things, right? And there's some people who come straight to mind when I'm saying that, by the way, who I know in your business. I'm just thinking about what they would like to do or not like to do, etc.
Yeah, I don't think we got this nailed, to be honest with you, James.
Mm-hmm.
With the movement that we had in 2022. So for those who don't know, we acquired a business, and we brought 40 odd personalities into an existing business of Focus Cloud, and that's now made the Focus Cloud group. So I think that a number of our historic staff and a number of the historic cognitive staff had slightly different motivations, and now it's on a much bigger scale, right? So the answer to that question, James, is really difficult. But the way I do it is probably the most simplest way. Ask the question. What does everyone want to do?
Yeah.
You know? And then you structure your incentives around what everyone wants to do. That's the best way I found.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else has got a better way of doing it.
No, I definitely agree. And I mean, we did I remember working with a recruitment business many years ago, and they wanted to come up with something which was more personalized to the individual. So we actually created a system which was like a points bank system. So you earn points for hitting certain levels of performance, and you can cash those points in for a prize, or you can hold on to them and build up to get a bigger one, etc. So the people who wanted to go for the 4-day trip to south of Spain could do that and accumulate. The other people who just wanted to go and pay off their mortgage could turn it into cash instead. And that one person just wanted a day off, just to go take the dog for a walk. I just wanted a day off. I just want a day away from Lloyd. Is all I needed. So, so sometimes creating that environment.
Quite a common thing.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah. but sometimes just create that environment where people can almost pick and choose their own reward. It's probably quite a good thing. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that in your business, Michelle, or anything similar to that.
Yeah, we kind of mix it up actually, like quarterly, so and by office. So we've got multiple offices as well, and I think some of the ones that have got most traction weirdly are kind of more aligned with sort of purpose-led things now. So we will do we did like a walk from Crawley to Boston, right? And it was like everybody downloaded Strava and got out and was being active. But we tracked it on charts in the wall. So instead of like call times and dials and all of that, everyone was tracking their steps. And every week, the person that traveled the furthest got to choose what they wanted. So sometimes that was a pair of sunnies, or, you know, someone chose some trainers, someone chose a spa day. So that kind of allowed us to do that. But it was also getting our team out, being active, creating a bit of an incentive that wasn't around the day-to-day job. So it created that culture of everyone working together for a common goal, but getting out and getting fit. And then we raise some money for charity at the same time. And actually what we are finding is sometimes those are the ones that apply to more generations, because we have got, you know, younger people that are coming in that are very purpose-led. And then we've still got the people in the middle that want the tangible gifts and the things that they can show off and be a bit statusy around. So we've started doing a bit more of those, along with some of the old school things that Shane just mentioned as well.
Definitely. And you know, I'm a massive Strava user, so I know exactly what that feels like. I spend my life looking at Strava, trying to compete with other people and give kudos to other people, and I love all that. It's great fun. I suppose that brings us a little bit more to, I suppose, where the angle of this conversation might lead now, which is Strava, Olympic performance, high performance. You talked about marginal gains. That's all about looking at data. That's looking at performance data and going, well, how do I do it better tomorrow to increase productivity and performance? So Shane, if I kick off with you on that one, what are you doing at your business to utilize data as a way of driving productivity? We're talking about the emotive stuff, right? Motivating people, putting our arms around them, etc. But how are you using data to drive this productivity agenda?
So for us, we've got, you know, the non-negotiables, you know, the things you have to do every day. We track those in Bullhorn Analytics. They're the key inputs. They're the things that you should just be doing. You know, we can't control necessarily if a client's going to take X candidate on whatever day, and, you know, all the you know, the stuff that's out of our control. But the things that we can control are that we show up, we do enough of the right things, and we do them to the best of our ability. We track all of that stuff in Cube, and essentially we look at the trend charts quite a lot. So we kind of zoom out rather than just looking at, you know, oh, you had a great day today, or you had a great week. Anybody can have a great day. Anyone can have a great week. Can you do it over a quarter? What does that look like? And that's where you get the, you know, the sustained levels, where you're looking at, you know, the 90 rolling 90 days is typically what we're measuring everybody on, and everyone just knows where they stand, what's expected of them, and what they'll be challenged on if they don't do it, because we'll see that results.
And do you think it's the job of the recruiter, and I'll ask this to anyone on the conversation, is it the job of the recruiter, or is it the job of the leader to be using that data, analyzing that data, and therefore coming up with the therefores? Or do we want our recruiters to be looking and understanding their own personal data and going, right, I'm going to be different today because of based on what I've did yesterday type
I
thing.
think it's so important that both are involved in that process, because I think if the consultant doesn't understand why they're doing something, why would they do it? They don't see the value in it, or the fact that something needs to change, and understand that you're not going to get anywhere. I could tell you need to do more of this, that, the other. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen. They've got to understand it themselves, but I think they need to have your experience and your guidance to make sure that, you know, that helicopter view is pointing them in the right direction. Because I think it's really hard if you're at desk level, you just keep going, right?
Yeah.
And you keep getting told to keep going. But I think unless you zoom out a bit, it's really hard to know if you're going in the right direction.
Well, I think that's what creates that burnout piece, isn't it? I think if you've got a manager who's supposed to keep going, and they don't know the why, then that just does create a level of burnout, I think, at some point, which brings back to that sort of motivational piece as well. Lloyd, in your business, how are you guys using data, and how are you getting consultants, I suppose, to become, let's call it, data literate, where they really appreciate the value of these metrics and stuff we've got up on the walls, and looking at the data and making decisions differently and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, what's been really good for us is on Bullhorn Analytics, the ratios. So every month or every week, every month, every quarter, every year, how can we improve, let's say, our CV to interview ratio? How can we improve our interview to placement ratio? And you touched on it earlier. I think you said whose responsibility is it? And Shane said both. I couldn't agree more. But it's all about, it just goes back to mindset, doesn't it? If the person, you might have a leader with a great mindset, but if the consultant that they're leading hasn't got the right mindset, then this will never be translated across to that person, and they're just not going to do it. So I think it all, for me, does come back to your mind and how your mindset's working. Because if your mindset is, I want to be better, I want to be better, I want to be better, then you are naturally going to be looking at these ratios thinking, right, next week I'm going to make that better. Yeah. Even that 0.1% better, that means I'm better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And then, so at RBW, Michelle, do you train people when they join the business around how to think about be data-led, I suppose, and use data and think about it as a way of driving performance rather than just doing more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use analytics. That's our tool that we use for weekly meets. So it's a computer says no mentality. If it's not on analytics, it didn't happen. So I think that's a really good way of using it. And we'll train that to consultants when they come in. It's also something that I'm, even now, a bit like Lloyd, we haven't got it perfect yet, but working with team leaders to kind of lift the lid a little bit more so that it's not just numbers for numbers' sake. And the thing that we've found really helpful for that is actually using actionable insights. If you have the analytics tool, what's really helped us is to be looking at, okay, well, you can't really take away from the fact that recruitment is a numbers game to an extent, but it's what you do with that. So, you know, are we continually just putting more and more and more in the top, but having a hole at the bottom of the bucket, everything's just dropping back out? So we've got some really basic actionable insights built in that are really valuable. So things like jobs with no activity against them, that lands on the consultant's homepage. So if they've picked up a vacancy, we track what activities happened inside of 14 days, and the consultant can see whether they need to do more or less with that vacancy. We track things like candidates qualified that haven't gone anywhere. So the leaders and the consultants can start to see, okay, well, that's great that you've spoken to 10 new people this week. Actually, you haven't done anything with them. So what was the purpose of you speaking to those 10 new people if they're not going out to jobs, or, you know, you're not chasing it? And there's tons of stuff that you can build into the actionable insights, which is really, really user-friendly. And then we look at ratios over a larger period of time. So again, to Lloyd's point, from an L&D perspective, my job is about quality as well as quantity. So I'm always looking for, you know, what's our job fill ratio? How can we improve that? You know, actually, you know, how many CVs does someone need to send to get an interview? And then that's what their targets then become. Because we all know that some people can get the same results by doing half the amount of work. And then the people that can do it that way use that to my advantage as well. That's what they use for promotion track. So I can go in and say to someone, well, look, actually, this is what you get right now. if you want to get promoted, all you need to do now is send one more CV a week, because your interview track will mean that you'll hit the revenue number. So it's such a valuable tool to use from an L&D perspective and just a workflow perspective.
Yeah, definitely, and it drives those minimum standards, because it's quite interesting actually, because there's a very, I think there's an interesting internal debate going on amongst a lot of recruitment leaders about KPIs, because we've been a KPI industry for years. Then we went into a stage of shouldn't really talk about KPIs. They're a bit aggressive and a bit nasty. So let's just not talk about them and mention them. And then we're now going back. Well, actually, I need performance. I can't, without KPIs, I can't drive performance. I can't bloody measure anything. So to me, recruitment is a numbers game. It is KPI driven, minimum standards, whatever you want to do. There are ratios that we need to address. And I think we can't avoid that. I think we've gone too far being too generous about mentioning it or not talking about it and that type of stuff, to me personally. And I think we need to really bring people back into the point there are minimum standards of activity you need to do every single day without fail, the basics brilliantly. And if you want to get an extra 10% performance and hit that target, then you need to hit that KPI. It's fairly obvious from that point of view. Shane, do you I suppose, do you agree with that piece? And then the second piece, if I was to say to you, what would be your go-to top 2 or top 3 KPIs? Let's use the dirty word, but metrics that you look for in a business if you want to drive more performance. Where would you go straight away?
So I completely agree, and we do use ratios, because I think ratios can be too good as well, and that often dictates there's not enough output. So I think looking at both is really important.
Just clarify that for people listening.
So if I was just looking at your core, let's say your core CV output, and then your number of interviews, and your interview ratios were, you were getting 100% interviews for every candidate, but actually you're only sending 10 candidates out a month.
Yeah.
Your ratios look fantastic, too good. You're not sending enough 70%, you're not selling those opportunities, the people with the wonderful personalities and can-do attitudes, etc. But I find that we look at both of those and just make sure that it all adds up to a decent level of output and the quality is really good.
Yeah.
The things that I look at, ultimately a fill rate, how much of our time is actually monetized. So we do look at how much time we put into each vacancy based on the fee. So we do allocate that. So we work quite like a search mentality on that basis. And then for me, the second one is number of interviews. Project time, we call it. If I want to drive productivity, I just want, I drive that interview number up, and guess what happens? Typically more deals.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, I don't think. We are bringing more rocket science into the world of recruitment now, though. So if we now look at what's been happening in the last 12 months and what's happening over the next couple of years, there's no doubt in my mind that tech and AI automations is playing a very, very significant role in the evolution of a recruitment company. And we've seen some amazing stories and examples already of recruitment companies just transforming their business based on their AI strategy and everything else. And AI fundamentally is there to build up or increase people's capacity and productivity, right? It takes off the heavy lifting and allows people to do more of the really important stuff in recruitment, which is get out in front of your customers and be human again, which I think is a hugely exciting piece. Lloyd, you and I have spoken about tech and automation. I know something you're really a big fan of. What are your thoughts about how a recruitment company is changing in the future when it comes to tech and AI? I mean, do you think a recruitment company is going to look different, or is it still going to be a room full of 150 recruiters banging the phones every day type stuff?
That is another difficult one, James. I think first of all, what I've seen with recruitment companies and those that I speak to is recruitment companies are becoming more professionalized. So they're looking to implement better back office systems, better HR payroll systems. And we've discussed that recently in the last couple of months, haven't we? Do I think that the general makeup of a recruitment company is going to change? I hope not. I really do, because I think that if come away, or if we come away as an industry from that great thing which is in recruitment, which is our personalities, and ultimately the reasons why customers will use you when they've got so much other options. You know, a customer chooses you because of your personality, because they enjoy doing business with you. And I think we have to be very careful not to take that away from our industry with all the tech that's available.
Yeah. Do you think there's an opportunity though to use tech to, because I look at a recruiter and think how much of a recruiter's typical day is just not that stuff, the stuff that actually, you know, the stuff that we believe in, you know, being human, doing the right stuff, having a personality, showing your personality to your customers, you know, going and doing client meetings, you know, proper number of quality client meetings, that sort of stuff. And I always look about how much of a recruiter's day typically is not doing that, is wasted time in essence, if one of it. And if we can replace that wasted time with tech to do it for us, even if we can get tech to amplify that and do 10 times more of it, surely that will give us more time then to do the bit that you just said, Lloyd, which is about being that human and doing the stuff, the personality piece.
I think it's being selective on the parts that we want tech to do for us.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's really like the low end heavy lifting, you know,
Yeah.
sending the email, all those types of things, I think absolutely we should push the industry as far into that as possible. I certainly will be with Focus Cloud, but it cannot come away from ultimately the reason why your candidates like you, the reason why your clients like you, which is ultimately your personality.
Yeah.
An AI bot is not going to generate customers for you.
Mm-hmm.
An AI bot can arrange the meeting for you. I get it. So the heavy lifting, the email follow-ups and stuff like that. But I don't believe it's ever going to get to a stage where, you know, tech wins a customer for you. I just don't think it will.
It was interesting.
I hope very much it doesn't.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think I was looking at the Bullhorn automations that are already set up. Basically, you know, every Bullhorn user got access to. You can just like turn them on and flick and make them go, sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was looking at those and I was asking that same question: how many of those actually would I want a system to do, as opposed to would I want my people to do, sort of stuff? And actually, every process in there was absolutely spot on. It was all the heavy lifting stuff. I think you're right. When we start taking away some of that other stuff and getting bots to do it, I think we're then bastardizing recruitment and bastardizing the sales process and all the bits that we take. And I think it holds really valuable. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's like that classic piece of, you know, would you rather receive today, in today's market, an email from someone, an email from someone, or a handwritten letter? And it's fascinating because, you know, we actually got a handwritten letter to our house last week from a friend of ours that we haven't spoken to for ages. And I literally fell off our seats. I mean, A, because I couldn't read the handwriting, that's another story. But B, it's just like, I mean, it felt so special and so much effort went into writing a letter. And, you know, is that the state of play where there's so much tech at the moment? Maybe we need to bring it back a little bit to let's make sure the real personal stuff stays real personal stuff and that sort of thing. Yeah. Shane, I know you're a complete geek when it comes to technology. I'm allowed to say that, is right. But I know you use a lot of technology within your business, and you're a big fan of the Bullhorn automations and everything else. Just give us your take on this, on around sort of the growth of AI and tech within a recruitment business.
Wow, what a big topic.
Yeah. You got 3.5 minutes.
Have you prepared, Shane?
Yeah. So look, for me, my whole tech stack, my whole mission for our businesses is to stop us doing crappy admin tasks, sell more, be more personable. And I think that, you know, that's been my strategy for 4 years. Before AI, it was automation, and, you know, we put everything in to allow our people to spend more time with people. So I agree, you know, I don't want recruitment to go the route of, you know, everyone just pushing tech out. And, you know, I love tech more than most, granted, but there are really important things where you have to join dots. And I don't think that, you know, any amount of training will make a bot understand that, you know, I placed this candidate 6 years ago at this client, they're back on the market, I know they're great for this role. There's things that AI just won't do. I do think, and I've seen it at one of your sessions, James, that you can clone, and there were some, you know, some bad people that are doing some amazing things with this technology, which is pretty scary. But I do think putting us into a place where we can do more of the human touch, more face-to-face meetings. I've never gone to a face-to-face meeting and not come back with a job. In all my years in recruitment, it's never happened. There's always been something. Someone somewhere is looking for something. You come back, you've got a requirement, and you've got an opportunity to make money. That's where
and we know that. So why is it where there are recruiters out there who are low on jobs, not doing meetings? It's like, I mean, that's the bit that just drives me insane when you think about it. It's like we know we pick up meetings when we go and see clients, and you're low on jobs, so you need to bring in more jobs. So surely the answer is go and see more clients, and then it's like, whoa, are you really serious?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I think it's getting the time from those genuine clients, because I think we're in a world where we're all on video most of the time. And I know that the challenge that I've seen is to get people to get out of the office. They could do 8, 10 of these meetings a day. They might only do 1 or 2 if they're going to actually see a client. So they're looking at, how much trade-off do I get for that time spent doing that activity? You could waste 10 meetings on Zoom or Teams and actually have 2 really good quality meetings. So I think it's hard to get the consultant's viewpoint around that. And I think we're still in a world where a lot of people in this market are just like, I want to see people working. I want to know they're doing what they should be doing. So I think there's an element of trust there that should put more into people
from the leaders. Yeah, interesting. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to try and bring it around to a couple of points. And there's a question that's coming a little bit that touches on this. To do all this stuff around data, around AI and automations and tech, and to use Bullhorn properly and get it's all about the quality of the data that we've got in our business. So the quality of the inputs coming in, et cetera, et cetera. How do you, and I'll pass it to Shane and Lloyd to start with that, Skye, but how do you guys drive that agenda about you've got to put in good data into the CRM system? It's like you can't half do it, you can't not put it in. How do you drive that agenda through people?
We use AI note takers to get the relevant information. We transcribe most, if not all, of our meetings. We link it to promotional criteria. So you have to have an element of the data going in. Computer has to say yes to show that you're doing X, Y, Z, and your ratios are tracking in above the average of the agency. So I think that but yeah, I'm interested to see what more comes from AI, because I know there's some partners that are looking at transcribing calls, pushing that data in, being able to search across that data. We try and pull information from every single call. We're being able to access that. We're putting note types on to then search through to build a picture. I want to be able to ask a bot, tell me about this client, what should I be going to talk to them about, and then going to talk to them. That's what I want to see happening.
And Lloyd, from your point of view?
Yeah, for us it's quite basic, right? It's entering the right details into the system, and historically we've had a system where it wasn't configured properly, and that wasn't all. But we saw the impact of that, pre-COVID, of what happens when you don't configure your system properly. So you're making lots of placements, but actually when you take a step back and go, well, let's look at the quality of our data, and then you realize that the quality of your data in the last 3 years that you've been inputting it is not going to then last you for the next 5 to 10 years, and you're not going to be able to scale your business. We had a huge data exercise in 2018, where basic things like skills, are you skilling up these candidates? And a lot of our candidates pre-COVID, say pre-2017, because we was growing extremely fast, and we thought everything was fine. Everything's fine. We're making lots and lots of money. We get lots of clients very happy with us. So everything's great. But actually, when you look at where you're going to go as a business, that's not scalable. So we put in those necessary things, that every single candidate needs to be skilled up. And one of the things I did, James, as well, is I showed the team at the time what the impact of that was. So I got the whole team together, and it was a much smaller team at the time. And I said, show me how you would search for a candidate with X, Y, Z skills. and I already know a candidate because I'd already looked, right, and that person wasn't skilled up. So in theory, this person should come up in your results, right?
Yeah.
And everyone says, yeah, of course they will. Okay, so run that search. Where is that person? And then the team can actually go, oh, the person's not in those results because we didn't skill them up. Well, imagine that times 100.
Hmm.
You know, that's a recipe for disaster. You can't scale a business like that.
100%. I think it's massive, and I think if we are going to go on this journey of expansion with tech and AI, and Scott, in the question was asking around, at what point will AI and automation become too much, and is there going to be too much AI and automation? I don't think any of us know the answer to that question, but I think certainly from a data point of view, if our data isn't set up properly in the first place, then we're not going to be able to go on an AI journey anyway, because it just won't work. It's simple. And then we're relying on external AI data, which won't allow us to do the stuff that we need to do, and it won't be strong enough or fine enough. Michelle, I'll bring this last question back to you then, really. So if we're looking forward now, my assumption, no, we advise lots and lots of recruitment companies. We work with lots of different people. We get quite a good helicopter view of the industry, and I think my take on the industry has been it's been another interesting stroke challenging 12 to 18 months. But it is what it is. You get over it, you move forward. I think a lot of recruitment companies are better because of it, because we're now a little bit more optimized, a little bit more focused on the right stuff. We've, a little bit, we were a bit loose, I think, in the post-COVID boom, and less so now, which is good. So I think our businesses are a lot tighter. And now we're in a market recovery. So the market is definitely much better than it was, and it's definitely getting better. So we're seeing all the trajectory, starting to hear record months being reported again, all this sort of good stuff, which is great. So what's the message that you're putting out to your people, new experience otherwise, around what we're going to do, guys, moving forward next 6 to 12 months to really maximize and exploit, if I can use that word, this, I think, a high growth opportunity that we're currently facing from a productivity point of view?
I think the big learn is not to take your foot off the gas and let the pendulum swing too far in either direction. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's something that as recruiters we can be guilty of. When it's a job-rich market, we swing to just sourcing candidates and take the foot off the gas on the BD stuff. When it's the opposite way around, we swing too much on, source it like the other way. So for me, it's trying to strike that balance and not to, ever take your foot off the gas. You have to be doing all of the basics all of the time, because otherwise you crash really, really quickly. Maximizing your relationships is absolutely key to the other guy's points. I think that when things are tough, if you can stick with your clients and you can stick with your candidates, they will come back to you when you come out the other side. The times where it doesn't go that way is when you think, well, I've got nothing to talk to this candidate about, therefore I'm just going to ghost them for however long. And then you try and pick up the phone in 6 months' time and they're like, where have you been? So it's just about trying to keep the pendulum as close to the middle as you possibly can all of the time, and not being swayed too far.
Fantastic. It's interesting, isn't it? We could have done this webinar 10 years ago, when I was only 22 years old. And we would probably still be saying the same sort of stuff. It's about doing the basics consistently, get closer to your clients, don't take your foot off the gas when things are booming, etc., etc. It's interesting. Nothing's really changed. The playing field is a little bit different. I think the modeling is a little bit different on the periphery, but the reality is running a recruitment hasn't changed at all. Running a business that hasn't changed at all. And our ability to manage performance in the good times and the bad times is absolutely key here. Thrive and survive, or survive and thrive, I would say necessarily. So I think we could talk for hours about this. I think there's tech involved. Obviously, Bullhorn have been a brilliant sort of supplier, I think, to the industry when it comes to leading the charge on some of these initiatives about what we can be doing and how we use this properly, etc. But going back, I think even down to Lloyd's point, how we started this a little bit, is that there's a big mindset play here. Us as leaders about driving the right mindsets of high performance within our people and getting the right mindset and motivation, to Shane's point before, from our people. I think we're in a really, really good place. I'm going to ask this question to close off from everyone. If I was to ask you to finish off, would you just describe how you're feeling about the next, let's go 6 to 12 months, about the industry, from an optimism point of view, positive point of view, negative, whatever? What are your, how would you summarize the next 6 to 9 months in your mind? What are you feeling? I'll start with Lloyd on that one.
Really positive. Yeah, really, really positive, actually. I think that my view on markets, as you know, James, is that, if you can tell me there's a downturn in the market if every recruitment company is going out of business.
Yeah.
But we know even in the downturn, not every recruitment company went out of business. So someone's still making placements. Someone's still helping your client. It just isn't you, and generally it will be because that person hasn't got the right mindset.
Mhm.
So let's change the mindset. So I'm feeling extremely positive about the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah, really
Good.
positive.
Good,
I think
good.
it will come from us.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. Shane, how about you?
Same. I think any periods where there are change for whatever reason, there's always opportunity. I think you just got to look for the right kind of opportunity. I completely agree. I think we've seen this opportunity to grow our contractor book, which further stabilizes our business, but on the back of that, we're seeing other opportunities for new clients, and we're piggybacking off the back of all those case studies and testimonials, and it's working incredibly well for us. I think if Henry Ford, if you think you can or you can't, either way you're right.
Mhm.
I think it literally is that. Be positive and look for opportunity. You'll find it.
Yeah, 100%. And Michelle?
Yeah, I would echo it. I think that this isn't the first time that I've been in a business that's been through a challenging time for hiring. And I kind of always go back to that point that you lose people along the way, but actually when you look at what you're left with, the people that have got through this time with you are the best people that you could possibly move forward with. So, it's a massive win, because I can look around me now and think, well, this is the team that we want to drive the future growth with. So that's quite exciting from my perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some fascinating stats, and I'll ask anyone on this call listening to this to Google this. But look, how many organisations, some of the highest performing organisations in the FTSE 500, etc., came out of an economic downturn. They were born during challenging times, because when they built their businesses, they were focusing on doing it the right way, in a tight way, etc., etc. I think that's really exciting. And I think we've come out of that now. Now is the time to maximise and exploit this opportunity, which I think is great. I'd like to thank the guys at Bullhorn for hosting today. Hopefully those of you listening to this today and found this useful. I think we could chat for days about this type of stuff, and we'd love to chat for days about it. But thank you for Bullhorn for allowing us the chance to have a good sort of 45 minutes on this subject. Michelle, Shane and Lloyd, as always, thank you. Lovely to see you guys and getting your input about this type of stuff as well, which is great. And I think for any of you listening to the call today, use this hopefully as a springboard to get your thinking going around what are you doing as a business? What are you doing as a recruiter to be more productive, whether it be mindset, whether it be using your tech platform, or hopefully a blend of the two. If you could drive that productivity up now, it's got to be a good opportunity. So lovely to see you all as always. Thank you for joining us live. Those who joined live, those who listen to recording, thank you, and we look forward to catching up soon. And obviously the recording will go out to everybody as well if you were listening to the live call, so you can listen back and listen to our cheery voices once again. But thanks ever so much. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.